Hello everyone, I'm Jack Fisher and welcome to my world. Growing up, I was taught that good things were worth waiting for. Be patient, parents and teachers say. It'll be worth it in the end. I won't say they were always right, but it's still good advice. Patience, in most cases, does pay off. Good things take time to occur, and sometimes forces beyond anyone's control can get in the way. If ever there was a movie that embodied the merits and frustrations of patience, it's New Mutants. This isn't just a movie that got stuck in development hell. It was actually set to come out way back in 2018. Then, a long string of studio meddling, too much for one video to cover, caused numerous delays. At first it was because Fox wanted extensive reshoots. Then Disney bought Fox and the whole X-Men franchise was suddenly in flux. Then, just when it seemed like the movie was destined for streaming, a new release date was secured. Then the pandemic happened and, well, you get the idea. A lot of things have gone wrong for this movie. It was supposed to take the X-Men franchise in a bold new direction, mixing mutants with horror, drawing inspiration from a well-regarded comic in the mid-1980s. As a lifelong X-Men fan, I was genuinely interested in New Mutants. I had high hopes for this concept. Plus, the acting talents of both Malaysia Williams and Anya Taylor-Joy seemed well suited for their roles. But so many things kept happening to derail this movie. So many forces worked against it, many of which were beyond the control of the director, the studio, and the cast. But finally, it came out. And honestly, I didn't think it would. I didn't know if movie theaters would reopen this year. But it finally happened. And I made it a point to see it on opening night. While it required more patience than I had hoped, I found the overall experience to be genuinely satisfying. Was it worth the wait? Well, here's my review. And yes, I'll keep spoilers to a minimum. Now, before I get into specifics, I feel I need to make a disclaimer of sorts. New Mutants is not a superhero movie in the mold of the MCU. It's also not a traditional X-Men movie in the mold of the original trilogy. If you go into this movie expecting to see Avengers or X-Men First Class, you're going to be disappointed. New Mutants is still an X-Men movie, but it tells a different kind of story built around a different kind of genre, namely horror. This isn't a story about young mutants becoming superheroes. This is a story about fear, coming of age, and turning into something/someone you don't understand. That, in and of itself, is a scary process. Whether it's becoming a mutant or just going through puberty, it can be difficult, if not horrifying. From there, New Mutants embraces its horror-centric theme, because when you get right down to it, becoming a mutant is pretty damn scary. Something's happening to your body and you don't understand it. On top of that, those around you don't understand it either, and it scares them every bit as much as it scares you. While some are more reasonable than others, some give in to that fear and they take it out on you, which only compounds the horror. It's an approach that shouldn't seem like such a radical departure from previous X-Men movies, but New Mutants really makes it work. And it takes full advantage of the X-Men's rich lore. Part of what made New Mutants so successful in the comics was how it built up these young, inexperienced characters. Danielle Moonstar, Roberto de Costa, Sam Guthrie, Rain Sinclair, and Ilyana Rasputin. These are not trained, experienced X-Men. They're kids, teenagers overwhelmed by what's happening to them. Their respective stories are all unique. From rural Siberia to a Cheyenne reservation to a Kentucky coal mine, they all come from different circumstances. The only thing that binds them is that they're young and they're mutants. And, like most overwhelmed teenagers, they're prone to moodiness, melodrama, and angst. This movie tries to capture all of that within a tight 90-minute runtime. As a result, it doesn't waste a single frame of film. This movie, and all the horror elements it relies on, really hits the ground running. The main character we follow is Danielle Moonstar. She's the catalyst for everything that happens. She provides the primary point of view for the entire story. From her, we learn about these characters, who they are, and what they're dealing with. And by any measure, it's not pretty. One day they're just ordinary teenagers trying to live their lives. The next, they're mutants. But when their powers manifest, they don't go directly to the Xavier Institute. They end up in some mysterious hospital run by a woman named Dr. Cecilia Reyes, another character ripped straight from the comics. Now, hospitals are scary enough, but this one has dark secrets of its own, some of which X-Men fans will recognize for all the right reasons. Without getting too deep into spoilers, all you need to know is that Dani's powers are the catalyst for much of the horror throughout the story. Like the comics, she turns dreams and thoughts into real, tangible manifestations, even if they're terrifying. Well, especially if they're terrifying. These aren't illusions or nightmares in the mold of Freddy Krueger. This stuff is real, and it leaves real scars. It keeps escalating and escalating to a point where these characters basically have to become superheroes to face it. And it's a hell of a ride, full of action, horror, angst, and melodrama. And honestly, I enjoyed it every step of the way. At no point does this movie drag or feel empty. It also never gets overly dark or serious either. It does try to balance the angst and horror with actual character growth. These are teenagers after all. They do try to cope with their situation, albeit as teenagers often do. Some are more effective than others, but it still fits the mold of the story. And again, it's not structured like a superhero movie, and it's not structured like a typical horror movie either. There's a lot of mixing and melding of genres and themes. In the same way Logan mixed elements of a classic western, New Mutants blends horror with the various themes and concepts of superhero media. The end result is a unique, novel, and genuinely satisfying cinematic experience. And in a year like 2020, we need that. Now, I'm very aware of the review scores this movie has gotten, but I made it a point to avoid reviews before seeing it. I didn't want to color my opinion in any way. That said, I was very surprised by how negative the reactions were to this movie. As with other non-MCU movies, I feel like people decided to hate this movie before it ever came out. Those same people will give a movie like Logan a pass, but not this one for some reason. And that's a shame too, because there's a lot to enjoy here. New Mutants feels like a welcome innovation in the superhero genre. These movies need not be action-heavy spectacles. They can mix in a little horror, teen angst, and melodrama and still work. And, in my opinion, New Mutants succeeds in that effort. Now, that's not to say it's without flaws. New Mutants does have some inconsistencies, more so than other X-Men movies. You can tell at times that this movie needed some reshoots in a few areas. Some of the effects also felt like they needed more polish, and certain characters also needed more depth and development. For what it had to work with, New Mutants still felt like a solid, complete movie. If I had to score it, I'd give New Mutants a 7 out of 10. As an X-Men fan and someone who genuinely missed going to the movies, I really enjoyed myself. And even if you're not an X-Men fan or a fan of superhero movies, I still recommend you checking this out. Was it worth all the delays? That I can't answer. I'll just say that I'm glad this movie came out. It deserved a chance in theaters. New Mutants had a long, messy journey to the big screen. Now, it's finally complete. So, I say let's appreciate it for what it is and the experience it offers. Thanks for watching, everybody, and thanks for joining me in my world. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Take care and stay safe.